So I'm a huge fan of Dissidia Final Fantasy for the PSP. It's pretty much the go-to game for me if I'm going on any long journeys or anything like that. I'll definitely have that in my bag. So I've been pretty excited for Dissidia Final Fantasy NT for the PS4 since its announcement. Square Enix have allowed me access to the closed beta. I've been playing it for the last few days, so I'd like to give a few of my thoughts on how it's turned out and where it should be going, moving towards release. Although the general feel of the game is actually quite similar to the PSP games, they've kind of worked the system up from the ground up and redone every single character, and it's worked massively in their benefit. Team Ninja has done a really good job. At first I was worried that the move set would be limited for each character, like we wouldn't have the massive amount of customization that we got in Dissidia and Dissidia Duodecim. In those games each character had tons and tons of different moves that you could choose and assign to different button combinations, things like that. In this game it's kind of more like each character has their own moveset that they always use, but each character has become more unique. So if you like a particular character, it's not going to be similar to playing another character. I think this is really good because instead of focusing on putting more moves into the game, they can really focus on putting more characters into the game and making sure that they're unique and well balanced. Because some of the moves in the PSP games, like ones that let you chain from bravery attacks to HP attacks, which if you don't know are the ones that actually do real damage, the HP attacks. There were moves that let you chain those instantly into a HP attack, and those were pretty cheap because you could just quickly do the bravery attack and then press your square button and it'd immediately do damage. I think the character that's probably changed the most is Tidus. His moveset is like, his basic moveset is incredibly limited. He's got like one attack basically, but if you start to dash around with R1, you can do a dash move, and that opens up his moveset to loads of different things where he can go into like a dodge from a dash and chain different moves from that, which is really interesting. And that of course plays into the summon system because each summon can complement a different character. So you get to vote on the summon that you think would complement your character the best. Odin, for example, makes the dash meter refill quickly, so that's good for Tidus. I think the worst character in the PSP game was Van from Final Fantasy 12, and he's also probably one of the worst characters in general in any Final Fantasy, and he's still the worst character. I think it was tough for the team to decide what to actually do with him, like what moves he actually has or should have, and to try and make him unique like the other characters, they gave him 2 HP attacks, but those HP attacks are kind of essentially the same. They're both attack in a column from the ground up, I believe. I think my 3 favourite characters from the PSP game were probably Cloud, Warrior of Light and the Emperor, and I'm glad that the Emperor will be making a comeback when the game gets released. But actually I'm finding that completely different characters are becoming my favourite now. I didn't really like using Shantoto in the PSP games, but I'm really loving using her in this game. You can constantly barrage the enemy with really powerful spells. There's pretty much no reason to stop using spells just constantly, and it's really satisfying to kind of catch enemies off guard, you know, by mixing and matching different spells. Each character also has their own unique special move, which sometimes can get really interesting, like job changes for instance with a few characters. The Onion Knight from Final Fantasy 3 has been completely reworked. His special move is now job changes, so that's always really interesting to kind of mix up your tactics if something's not working quite right. So let's talk about the stages, because this is probably the most disappointing aspect of the game so far. The PSP game, it it was all about the big stages and using the environment to kind of get around the enemy. In this, it's kind of similar, like movement is really important, but there's a lot less options, I think, in terms of what's going on in the stages. There's no destructible environments, there's no really high environments, and a lot of the characters don't really have access to moves that can attack above or below. Only like 2 characters are kind of specialise in that. Those being Zidane and Cecil in his paladin form. I don't think any of the PSP stages have actually made the transition to the new game, and there's a few that I would really like to see. The Northern Crater from Final Fantasy VII, that was a really good one with lots of verticality. So now I've played the beta, what do I think Team Ninja should do to improve the game? I would say the most important thing would be give people options. The PSP game had tons and tons and tons of options for everything from the amount of time gauges take to refill, the damage ratios. Give us options like you can only do damage if a summon's active, mix it up a bit. The Cosmos and Chaos rules from the PSP game, where basically if you didn't attack for a certain period of time you would be frozen, and if you were low on health you would get a boost in your special gauge. So many different things you could do with this battle system that you couldn't necessarily do with a fighting game like Street Fighter, for instance. And that's what makes Dissidia special to me. That's why I enjoy it a lot more than other fighting games. I think there's a lot of tactics involved, a lot of space to be utilised. I find that it's very important to know which character you're facing, know their moveset, know what they can do, so you can counter that with your own moves. I'm disappointed to learn that there won't be a proper story mode. It will be basically through online. You will gradually get access to the story just by playing online, and I think that's really disappointing considering the depth of the PSP's story mode and all the different elements to it. Like the in case you don't know, dungeons are like a chessboard kind of, and there's pieces that make up the battles, and you can chain those battles together to get different rewards. One thing I will be very upset over if they do this is if they make characters DLC so that you have to pay more to get more characters. That will really do my head in. But let's face it, they probably will do that. Anyway, the game at its core is an absolute blast, and it's a big improvement over the PSP version in terms of making each character unique and just fun to play. It's a battle system that really lends itself to online play, as seems to be the focus. However, the AI at the moment in the beta is absolutely pathetic. Like, it doesn't block, it doesn't dodge, it will just let you steamroll over it. So that needs to be taken care of, I would say. Especially because if the game can't find the final player to join the team, it will just assign an AI to that final slot, and then one team's just going to immediately beat the other one because the AI is so pathetic. In theory, it shouldn't be a problem because the PSP games had tremendous AI, like really difficult AI that, once you got into the later areas of the game, you were just facing like insanely difficult guys that would dodge your every move, literally couldn't get a single hit on them. You just had to, really, really learn all the moves and know what you were up against. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Dissidia Final Fantasy NT beta. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.